So anyway, this guy Peter Heinrich.
Oh, Joe?
Excuse me.
Don't say so anyway.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Never ever say
You're right.
ever
You're right.
again.
No. Absolutely. So anyway, I'm just kidding. So Paul Heinrich. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so let's start again.
Just say Paul. Paul Heinrich.
It's just beans again.
There is
You
a
wanna-
train going by once again.
It seems to be this time of night, huh?
Yeah, it usually is.
I'm gonna close the door.
Is Shibuzo in? Well, then Shibuzo can sleep outside.
Hey, buddy. How you
Good
doing,
timing, Cap.
Oh, we're back. Sorry, I was staring out the window at that pesky neighbor cat. There you have it. Not so perfect, are they? It's our dinner time, so we have to go. Say goodbye, Beans.
Goodbye, Beans.
Thinking sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Well, hi there. Welcome to Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Joe, joined by...
I'm Steve.
Devin.
Okay, tonight we're giving you a quick update on Malaysian Flight 370. That's why we're talking so fast. So, without any further ado, let's get right into the story.
Yeah.
Stat.
Okay, just kidding, folks.
Ha.
Yeah,
Don't
this is a real quick little update, a little bonus episode for you guys. Since we posted our episode about MH370, there have been a few developments we wanted to bring you guys up to date on if you weren't aware of them. First development, an Australian company named GeoResonance claims that they have found a jetliner at the Bay of Bengal.
Where's that?
It's to the east of India.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, they say nobody is, the Australian government has actually said they don't take their claims seriously. Nobody else has actually bothered to go out and have a look-see to find out if it's there. And it really is, actually, it seems like unlikely that it's in that spot because it kept flying for a much longer period of time than it would have taken for the plane to get to the Bay of Bengal. So they may or may not have found it. I don't think it's likely.
Well, yeah, nobody's really taking it seriously. And what are they basing this discovery on?
Yeah.
Is it photographs that they're looking at?
I think that, well, their mission is to find stuff on the ocean floor, usually minerals.
Uh-huh.
And apparently, one of the ways they do it is by sniffing the air above the sea, and they can get traces of various things, like elements, things like that. And apparently, they found traces of things like that you would expect to find at a plane crash site, like traces of jet fuel, or at least the odor of jet fuel, traces of aluminum.
They're using smell-o-vision.
Pretty much, yeah. And so anyway, I don't know exactly how their technology works, and they probably don't want to fill everybody in on all the dirty little details of how their tech works, but they claim that they found it, and they're standing by their claim.
They claim that they found this or that they found a plane crash.
Well, that's true. They found a plane crash.
Okay.
It sounds like that's what they're saying. Okay, that's development number one. Development number two, now I know everybody's heard about this. They decided that the plane took the southern route, and the reason they decided that is the company that owns the satellite that did all the pinging on the plane.
In Merced, right?
Inmarsat, yeah. Or Inmarsat, excuse me. They analyzed their satellite data, and they announced that they were highly confident that MH370 flew south and not north. Because remember, at first, there was just a series of pings that went from the satellite down to the plane replied back. And as time went by, the return time of the ping grew longer. And so that's how they knew that it was arcing away from the satellite, but they didn't know what direction the ping was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So it could either have been north or south.
Right.
And then they announced that they had figured it out and analyzed their data, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they figured that out in a bit. Okay, and there's been another development. The third development is that there is a private intelligence organization called LIGNET, which stands for Langley Intelligence Group Network. And these guys have claimed in late March that they have intelligence that indicates that the plane landed in Pakistan.
And Langley, that would be the CIA headquarters?
Not necessarily. I mean, anybody can. It might be former intelligence operatives that work at Langley, or it might just be that they appropriated the name because there's no law to stop them.
True.
They want to
True,
say,
yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
But apparently, I mean, there are private intelligence services like Stratfor is one that comes to mind that are actually highly competent, and they're entirely private. They're non-governmental,
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
and so these guys are along lines of
So
that.
they're saying that it's been landed somewhere.
Yeah, apparently
Pakistan.
their strongest indicator for this is some engineers at Boeing who have confided in them that Boeing believes that it's on the ground in Pakistan.
Ah.
Which makes me think that and that when you think about it, a 777. So if somebody was going to hijack a plane and take the crew hostage, take the plane somewhere, then the first thing that they would do if they wanted to hide the plane is they would force the crew to tell them where every single switch for every transponder, every communication device on the plane is, so they could shut everything off. So having a device on the plane that the crew is not aware of would actually be kind of a good thing.
Yeah, but it seems like the sort of thing that Boeing would have, let some people know about.
You would think that they
You
would.
know, they-
yeah, I mean, they would at least.
There was a lot
would
of
have slipped out by
souls.
now.
They
Well-
would have said, "Hey, U.S. government, we have this hidden thing, and we know where it is."
Well,
so
yeah.
here's the deal.
No, that's true, but you don't know that the U.S. government isn't aware of this.
I guess that's true. Yeah, they could be doing some covert
Mm-hmm.
something or another.
Yeah. So anyway, those are our three developments. As you know, if you listen to our previous episode, we concluded, Team Sideways that is, we concluded that the plane had flown north and was in the hands of terrorists who were going to come back and rain some nuclear death on somebody.
I thought it was aliens.
Yeah. No,
I don't remember agreeing to that.
I don't think we agreed to that one.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought it was.
Well, I meant the nuclear thing.
Oh
The
yeah,
nuclear
we
thing?
agreed. To
I know I
aliens,
didn't
didn't we?
agree to the alien one
Oh.
either, but
Slipping out of time.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one.
What about the
Yeah.
black hole? That was a no. That was a no, right?
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
total no.
Okay.
It's such
Yeah.
a spoil sport.
Yeah. So okay. So anyway, I'm going to get back to Inmarsat and their announcement that they were conclusively sure that it had gone south. And I don't know if any of you know this. Actually, until recently, I didn't know this. I didn't know how they figured that out. I just sort of thought, well, they're the experts. What the hell?
Right.
Right. So here's what happened. They have a satellite over the Indian Ocean. It's at 64 degrees east, 0 degrees north, because it's on the equator, and it's in a geostationary orbit, which means that it's at 22,236 miles above sea level, and at that height, you're in an orbit that's exactly the same speed as the Earth's rotation. So you appear to hover.
Truly geosynchronous then.
Yeah, it's geosynchronous. Yeah.
That's cool. I guess I didn't realize that was a thing that we did. Although it makes
Yeah.
sense that of course we would do that.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, the closer two objects are orbiting each other, the closer they are, the faster they're moving around each other.
Sure.
Yeah. And then the farther out, the slower.
Right.
Yeah. So,
makes sense.
Yeah. So that's a sweet spot right there. A very popular spot to put satellites. There is this natural phenomenon called precession, and what that is you put a geosynchronous satellite into orbit, and it's near to perfect in its positioning. But over time, the pull of the sun, the pull of the moon, solar wind, magnetic variations in the Earth's crust will pull that thing out of orbit over the equator.
So its position is degraded.
Yeah, it has. And so this thing is now 1.66 degrees off the equator. So that means during the course of a day, it goes as far as 1.66 degrees north, and then it starts going back down and crosses the equator again and goes 1.66 degrees south of the equator.
Oh.
So it's
that would make
dribbling
it
up and down.
and that would make it easier for them to figure out if things had gone north or south, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how they use it. Here's a diagram of the things. So
Yeah, I saw
Okay,
that.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway,
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and so that's how they were able to figure it out. They because this thing at a certain point during the flight was moving north, and then for the latter 2/3 of the flight, or until they lost contact with the plane, it was moving south and gaining speed. But this thing doesn't really move fast in a north-south direction. The fastest it goes is maybe 30, 35 miles an hour. And now we talk about the Doppler effect. And we all know what that is. I'll talk real quick, though. Doppler effect is what happens when you compress waves. So it happens with sound waves. Imagine a locomotive going by you, blowing its horn. Yeah, and when it goes past you, suddenly it drops. It drops in frequency because it's moving away from you, so the sound waves lengthen out.
There's a great episode of Big Bang Theory in which Sheldon dresses up like the Doppler effect. It's amazing. Go look at it if you haven't seen it.
I would like to see how he pulls that one off.
It's amazing.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm the Doppler effect. I like that. So that happens with light, happens with radio waves, everything. So when the satellite pings the plane, it gets a ping back. And then if the plane is moving away from the satellite, then it changes the radio frequency of the return ping.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
yeah. So if it's moving towards it, the frequency will slowly increase. If it's moving away, it slowly decreases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Just make sure I'm on par with, or on table with this.
But they graph the actual data, the actual shifts in frequency that they experience through the pings. Graphed all that. Then they drew up, knowing the speed and the direction of the satellite, they basically drew two theoretical curves on the same graph of what the shifts would look like if it had gone north and what the shifts would look like if it had gone south. Mm-hmm. And they found that the actual data that they got on that graph correlated very strongly with the southern projected track. And so that's why they concluded with such confidence that it had gone south. Well, turns out there are some people that have been trying to make sense of the graph, and we're not talking about just like yahoos with a website, right?
Not talking about just weird thinking sideways people or
exactly.
anything.
We're talking about people who actually know what they're talking about.
I graph everything, though.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
Okay, I don't graph anything.
Yeah, and so
thanks for outing me there, Devin.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, damn it.
No problem.
Okay, so some of these guys, I'll name four of them here. Michael Exner is the founder of a company called American Mobile Satellite Corporation. So this guy probably knows a bit about satellites and stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Duncan Steele is a physicist who currently is working at NASA.
/ porn star.
No, actually, do you guys recognize the name Duncan Steele?
It does sound really familiar.
1991 VG. Or VG 1991. He was one of the main guys that was in that story that we talked about.
Oh,
so he's
that's
totally
right. Oh, my God.
That we've talked about him before.
Wow, was he the same guy?
Same guy.
I thought I just recognized his name from like romance novels.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna.
Duncan Steele.
Yeah,
that's Danielle Steele. But I also made that mistake in that episode. Yeah.
But we're gonna need to like look this guy up on his wiki page and see.
It's the same dude. Pretty
dude?
Positive it's the same dude.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I went to his website.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Okay.
And the web doesn't lie.
Oh yeah, the web never lies. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Next guy in line, Tim Farrar, who's a satellite technology consultant, and a guy named Ari Schulman is editor of the New Atlantis, and I have no idea. I didn't bother to go find out what that mag is about, but he wrote a long, very interesting article where he summarized some of the problems that they've had with figuring out Inmarsat's data. And so here are some of the problems.
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to ask, were you going to go into those problems? Because I found it really interesting when I read the articles about it.
Yeah, the problems that they have with the graph. Okay, number one, the first ping. If you look at the graph, it was taken when the plane was on the ground. It shows a shift of minus 85 hertz. So according to their calculations, this involves like three-dimensional trigonometry and stuff, which is why I didn't actually sit down and try to replicate their calculations.
No.
I looked at the graph.
Even close.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take their word for it. So according to these guys, the plane would have had to be moving about 50 miles an hour relative to the satellite to produce that kind of a shift. So that doesn't make any sense in Inmarsat.
No, because that's when they're loading baggage.
Yeah.
The plane's not moving.
Yeah, I think at that time they were at the gate, and they might have just left the gate, but they weren't yet taxiing to the runway.
Okay.
According to their logs, they say that the frequency shifts are higher at the beginning of the graph, including that 50 miles an hour sitting at the starting gate. They're lower at the other end. So the shift at the last ping on their graph shows the plane moving away from the satellite at 103 miles an hour. But they produced a map, which we've all seen. It's a map of the globe that shows these two different arcs that the plane can take. And that map shows the plane receding at 272 miles per hour relative to the satellite. So that makes no sense.
Well, and their whole basis is that when Inmarsat did all their math, they said, well, the satellite doesn't move. So we know where it's at. They didn't take into consideration the fact that the satellite is actually moving up and down, north and south. And when these guys, when I was reading it, these guys did the math and they said, well, if you factor in the fact that at this point it should have been at the peak of its northbound arc, and you factor that in, oh wait, the plane is moving at 1 mile an hour in the very first ping that's 11 minutes before takeoff. So that actually makes more sense. That's how they got to their arc of trajectory of where this plane would have gone.
Well, actually, they took it a step further. Inmarsat based their calculations on the fact that the satellite was moving, and so that's how they figured that out. That the satellite was so. Say for example, if the plane's going south and the satellite is moving south, then what that means is that a ping back from the plane that is going south is going to be at a higher frequency than the ping back from the plane going north.
Right.
Yeah, and that's how Inmarsat figured that out. What they didn't take into account, apparently, is that the satellite is also moving relative to the ground receiving station that it's sending its data to.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah, okay, that's where it is.
So so they ping the plane, they get back a shifted radio ping, and then they retransmit that to the ground station. And
Which is also moving relative to the satellite.
yeah, it is. And the ground the receiving station is in Perth, Australia, and it's southwest, a long ways southwest from the satellite. And so so the fact that they didn't take that into account threw all their stuff off.
So it actually is two moving points in space, not one moving point in space.
Do they have an updated graph then?
Inmarsat does not.
But these guys?
Yeah, these guys do. Michael Exner, the founder of American Mobile Satellite Corporation, did the calcs on what exactly the shift would have been between the satellite and the ground station, and then he basically plotted that, subtracted it from the actual data, and plotted a different graph that actually matches reality far, far better than Inmarsat's graph. Smart people.
Yeah.
And then this one, like you said, does have the plane practically at zero at the beginning, which is where it ought to be.
Yeah.
You think.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, as I said, listen to the problems. The first ping, they were moving fast. The shifts are higher, but they solved that problem. They're higher at the beginning and lower at the end. And another big problem with it is, and I'm going to hold up this graph to the microphone so our listeners can see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, another big problem with it is they fixed that, but that still doesn't settle the issue of whether the plane went north or south, because as these guys have said, Inmarsat's predicted tracks for the plane, north and south, make absolutely no sense. If you look at, and we'll post a copy of this online for our wonderful listeners. But if you look at this,
for those of us in the room.
Yeah, for those of you in the room, you can see this. If you look at this at 1940, and we're talking time here, there was a ping set out, and this is the green line is the actual recorded ping, and this is the north course. What the shift would have been for the north course. This is what it would have been for the south course. But at that time, at 1940, the satellite had reached its northernmost point and was about to start going back south again, which means that relative to the planes, either the north or the south plane, the satellite wasn't effectively was not moving.
Yeah, it was stable.
Yeah, it was at that point not really moving. So what people are puzzled about on the predicted tracks that Inmarsat put on that graph is those points should be together. They should be the same spot.
I also think when I see correlations like this on a map that are so close, when they're like, oh yeah, this is what we projected.
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily, I just can't quite, I can't quite get there.
Yeah, well, there's some other head scratchers about the whole thing. After the satellite started moving southward, then those two lines should assume that the satellite turned around, started going south, and imagine for a moment that it's moving consistently the same speed as it moves along that line, right? So at that point, those two lines should be parallel. In other words, the shift should be the same, no matter what, for the north and the south. It should stay the same because the satellite is moving at the same rate. However, of course, the satellite is not staying at the same speed. It's picking up speed as it moves southward. What that means is that those lines should move apart as time goes by. Now look at the graph, and what do you see?
They're parallel.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're parallel for a bit, and then look what happens. They cross.
Oh, they do?
Oh, the north-south lines.
The predicted north-south track lines cross. Now, how can this happen when the satellite is moving southward?
Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah. And so,
This thing is fraught with problems.
yeah.
I'm not even that good at graph things, and
It sort of jumps out at you, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
graph
So
things.
So anyway, these guys have been trying to get information from Inmarsat about this, and they're not divulging what their methodology was for arriving at any of this stuff.
Guessing. We guessed.
Yeah, it's probably we just pulled.
I
it out
guess
of
we
our
know what
ass,
we're
yeah.
doing.
We kind of know what
Yeah.
we're doing, so we just guessed. Put
Yeah.
some points on a graph. Made
But-
it look legit.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
our intern Billy work on that.
Uh-huh.
He's good with graphs and colors.
He's good at making Excel graphs.
Exactly. So it's a head scratcher why Inmarsat won't just tell us why they came up with that particular prediction. And as Ari Schulman, the guy who wrote this article that I'm taking a little bit of this from, actually a lot. Thanks, Ari. So what he says is, since they won't say how they arrived at their estimates, and I'm totally paraphrasing here, of the frequency shifts from the north and south predicted paths, their argument basically is trust us. And so, in other words, there's no reason to believe they're correct about the flight heading south.
I guess this lends a little credence to the whole like Pakistan idea to me.
Yeah.
Or the like actual abduction of it. At some point, Inmarsat is saying, "Oh, we can't tell you how we came up with these things, but just trust us."
Mm-hmm.
Just trust us. And somebody from Boeing supposedly said like, "Well, we think it's in Pakistan." At some point, you kind of have to say there's enough weird information flying around that this isn't just coincidence and incompetence anymore. This might actually be people. I say I am not the conspiracy nut here.
Yeah.
But at some point, you kind of have to look at all of the incompetence that's been happening around this whole thing and
Well, I
say,
wouldn't call it incompetence.
but misdirection, maybe. I don't know.
Errors.
Errors, I guess, is probably you kind of have to take that step back and say, okay, is it possible that all of these people who are like professionals who really should know what they're doing are making these blunders, or is it more likely
That they're lying to us?
they're not supposed to actually tell us what they know?
Yeah, I think that probably is it, which leads to a whole lot of questions. Supposing it is in Pakistan, perhaps our government, the Chinese government, the Malaysian government are negotiating with these terrorists for the lives of those 230 people who were on the plane.
Well, you just don't want Pakistan to know. I mean, the people who have it. If an organization has it, you don't want people to say like, "Oh, we know you have it."
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna try and organize a rescue or covert operation or anything like that, you're not gonna be like, "Oh yeah, we know they have it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's cool.
that is a dealio. If you are head of a state and somebody commits an act of war, which this is, and you don't want to respond to that provocation, what do? Well, the best thing to do to avoid losing face is to
Play dumb.
is to just pretend like you don't know anything about it. So you tell the boys in Inmarsat, they come up with this idea, and you say, fine, just cook the books a little bit so we can say it went south, and we don't have to go beat the bushes up in Pakistan and up there.
Although
in Kush.
I will say that if this is a deliberate misdirection, we've sunk a lot. I mean, just the U.S. Navy alone has sunk
A lot of
millions
resources.
of dollars already into
Well, a lot of governments
this
have.
search near Perth. So if I would say that, I would be really angry
Well,
to know that we had just been like, oh yeah, no, we knew it was in Pakistan, or we knew it was, wherever else this whole time, but we just felt like we needed to save face.
Yeah, and obviously, and that's the thing that's a head scratcher too, is that if you get caught, it's the end for you. Mm-hmm. It's really the end, because think about all the families who've been thinking for all this time that their loved ones are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you better have a really good story when you get busted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
So anyway, it's the whole thing is just inexplicable, and it still might have gone south, as these guys are saying. They're not claiming that it went north.
They're just claiming it didn't go the way that
no,
Inmarsat said it
folks,
did.
Yeah.
Well, and I swear that I saw a map that they had drawn where it took from its original launch point, it took a very southwesterly route. So it's not heading towards Australia at all. It was heading way away from it in the opposite direction. And so it would explain why no wreckage has been found, because it is, thousands of miles in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And this is, again, their map is still saying it went south, but it didn't go southeast, it went southwest relative to where it started from.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult.
So anyway, I would say too, judging by the fact that not a single bit of debris has been found, not the
nothing.
tiniest little oil slick on the surface of the water, it kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's about it. You guys have any more to add? Any more?
No, I
alien
really don't know much
theories,
more
or-
to say.
No.
Yeah.
Slipped out of time.
Yep, probably a black hole. So anyway, folks, we just wanted to bring you guys up to date on all the latest. All right, folks, so if you would like to send us an email, our email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us and, of course, like us a lot on Facebook. And our webpage is, of course, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes. In fact, that's probably how you found us. But if you didn't find us that way, well, now you know. You can find us on iTunes. So please stop, give us a review. We like reviews, especially good reviews. We much actually kind of prefer those. And, of course, Stitcher. If you don't have time to download it to your iPod, you can just stream us on the go. And that's it. So, for Thinking Sideways, this has been a very special episode. The update on MH370. Hope you guys learned something. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Breaking news in the disappearance of Malaysia Air Flight 370. A glimmer of hope, as the Malaysian Prime Minister announced at a press conference this afternoon that he has asked the crack investigators of the well-known internet podcast, Thinking Sideways, to assist in the search.
Oh, hi there. This is Thinking Sideways, and I'm Joe, assisted by
Devin.
and
Steve.
yeah.
I feel like I was yelling. Sorry.
So usually we sort of tackle really ancient mysteries that have been around for decades, if not centuries, or even millennia, and of course we always solve them. But this week we thought we'd do something a little more topical, and you know what I'm talking about? Malaysia Air Flight 370. That's right. We're going to tackle this one. We're going to find those people, and we're going to bring them back alive. Right?
Maybe.
Yeah, might. Okay, so let's launch right into this. I mean, I know that everybody who's listening, or 99% of you, have been hearing nothing but Flight 370 for the past week, so I'm not going to go over all the little details. But I'll summarize just real quickly. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur, headed north over the Malaysian peninsula towards Beijing. It was supposed to be about a 5-hour flight. And initial reports from the Malaysian government were that the ACARS, which is the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System.
What they've been calling the transponder, right?
Yeah, well, they've some of them mixed up the transponders, like, because there's ACARS, but there's also a transponder, too.
Oh, okay. So this is something else. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a communications system, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Already I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the transponder is there. It's just basically like kind of an echo thing. If you get, it makes you more visible to radar. And so
Sending up pings, basically.
Basically, what it does, if you get painted by radar, then it sends a reply, and so it makes you a lot more visible to that radar.
Okay.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Cool.
So okay. So anyway, ACARS did stop communicating at some point, right about when they were crossing the coastline into the ocean, and then somewhat after that, the transponder was shut off, and that it was in a key spot because it was in the boundary between Malaysian air traffic control and Vietnamese air traffic control. So kind of in that no man's land out
Oh,
there.
so like after they'd stopped communicating with Malaysia, before they had to start communicating with Vietnam, they shut it off?
Yeah.
Or it was
That's
shut
when it
off?
stopped.
Yeah, that's when. Well, ACARS stopped earlier, and then the transponder was shut off, like right between Malaysia and Vietnam air traffic control. But it turns out ACARS was not entirely shut off. They said that it was completely shut off, but apparently it was still working because you've been hearing those stories about how the engines were pinging for hours afterwards. They were pinging. Yeah. Apparently that all that stuff goes through the ACARS system. There's an antenna and all that, so all that kind of stuff goes through ACARS. So apparently it was shut off in terms of communications. They stopped receiving any text messages or other communication from the people on the plane, but they were still, and also the engine stuff. But the system itself is programmed to every half hour ping the satellite.
Yeah, so the way I've heard it described is like a cell phone, kind of, right? The cell phone was turned off, but cell phones still send out little like, "Hey, I'm here."
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm here."
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly. Yeah,
I'm still here.
Yeah, in the context of the ACARS system, it's called a handshake.
Right, so they turned off the like active part of this communication system, but that
But
like,
it's-
little built-in part was
It
still
was still
so it
communicating.
wasn't totally
It's
disabled.
kind of a passive system.
Yeah, it's not like somebody like tore it off
Yeah.
the plane.
Right.
Yeah,
It
apparently.
was still attached and functioning and receiving energy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I read a Reuters interview with 6 pilots who have experience with the 777, and they said that completely disabling it would require opening a hatch in the floor of the plane and climbing down into a little room and pulling a fuse. And
So not just like flipping a switch.
No.
Got it.
Flipping a switch probably shuts off the communication part, but actually, but so yeah, so it was still putting out little beeps, and which allowed them to narrow the search down to a very tiny field of millions of square miles. So, and of course,
Yeah, it is a tiny area.
yeah. So anyway, let me real quick, so the plane headed southwest back across the Malaysian Peninsula, and at the time of this course change, halfway between Malaysia and Vietnam, the plane did go take a big excursion to 45,000 feet, which is beyond the operating envelope of the airplane.
I was going to say, what do they normally operate at, about 25 or 30?
Normally, cruising altitude for these is about 35,000 square feet or feet. 43,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so 45,000.
But it's still outside of tolerance.
Yeah.
So it had been like roller coastering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know if it was roller
It did
coasting.
at least one.
High, 23,000 feet, which is below where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be about 35 feet.
And now, what time did the flight take off? Like, what time are we talking here? Did they leave in the middle of the night?
It was a
during
red
the
eye.
day?
It was a red eye flight.
So it was dark out.
Yeah, it was dark. Yeah.
Okay.
When they left, it was dark, and when everything got shut off, it was still dark. So after bouncing up and down and everything, it turned southwest, went across the Malay Peninsula, wound up in the Malacca Straits, where then I know that place again. I know. And then it turned northwest, and it was tracked for a while by a military radar, and eventually left radar range. And so after that, the only subsequent tracking was done via the beeps it was getting from the ACARS system. And so, as you all know, you've all seen the maps, I'm sure. So there's a big line that goes all the way from northern Thailand all the way to Kazakhstan, and there's another one that goes southwest all the way to like Diego Garcia or somewhere around there.
And I was going to say is I found a really great image or a map showing the radius of how far it could have gone. Mm-hmm. And I know that we'll put that on the website because it really was. You hear, okay, well, it can go for hours, but how far can it really go?
Was it the one that was captioned, researchers say that Malaysian air flight is probably somewhere on Earth?
No, it's not.
I feel like
narrows
that's
it
the
down
most
quite a bit.
accurate description of where people think it might be.
Is that like The Onion?
Yeah, or something. It's
Yeah, but
probably on Earth.
But it is amazing how far the stinking planes can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, it could have gone all the way to Kazakhstan in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
It could have almost made it to Australia in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a huge area to have to search.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And everything blowing your wreckage all over the place. So the
Yep.
longer it goes, the harder it's going to be to find this plane. If it did
Unfortunately.
crash in the ocean.
Well, and it had, 239 people on it, including the crew?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
that's...
227 passengers. And so it was not fully loaded, but it still.
But it wasn't empty either.
No, yeah, it wasn't jam packed, but it was far from empty. And this is a Boeing 777-200ER, which is the extended range.
Oh, got
Yeah.
it. Okay, I was... That explains it. I kept seeing it, but I didn't know what the name meant, those extra bit of characters.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't those like some of the most reliable planes out there right
Oh, yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah,
Like
they
they've
have a-
never suffered a catastrophic failure before ever or something like that. I think
Yeah.
I read they've never crashed ever.
Yeah, well, there was that little thing in San Francisco. That was remember that a year or so
Yeah.
ago, where they had that big crash in San Francisco?
And that was pilot error.
That was pilot error. Yeah, you can't blame
Right.
the plane for that. And
But
so,
like as far as the like actual plane itself goes, they were saying this is literally the most reliable plane out
Uh-huh.
there right now.
yeah,
So the fact that that it's people were saying, well, maybe it's electrical, maybe it was like a plane error, maybe the plane crashed, it fell out of the sky. People were kind of saying it seems unlikely given that it's never happened before, but again, right? There's always a first time for everything.
absolutely there is. And there's a lot of theories out there. I'll jump ahead myself a little bit. And one of the theories is that there was a catastrophic decompression of the plane because they were hit by a meteor.
A meteor?
Yeah,
Are you serious? We're jumping right into crazy
Right.
theories.
yeah, no,
Right into the crazy
town,
ones.
right off the bat.
Crazy town.
Yeah, so anyway, but the last ping that was received from the ACAR system was at 8:11 a.m.
Oh.
So that is
So like 8 hours.
that's like 7 hours, 7.5 hours after they went up
wow.
course. So yeah, they were flying for a long time, which makes me wonder if maybe they had more gas than they think, because they had enough gas for a 5-hour flight to Beijing, and that's about 2,700 nautical miles, I think.
I read that it had enough gas for 8 hours of flight because I think that they're supposed to carry extra just in case.
Exactly. I mean,
Right.
you don't want a full tank because it's a lot of weight to carry around.
But you also don't want
You want enough to get you there, and then you want to put a little bit extra
For,
in
like, diversion
for
or-
headwind and that
yeah.
kind of thing. And they put a little extra in for diversion and maybe a little safety cushion after that.
Yeah.
Well,
Because who wants to be landing on an empty tank?
I know.
yeah. Well, there was an instance here in Portland some years back where a plane ran out of gas over PDX.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember hearing about that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it was like they were in a holding pattern over the airport. And I can't. The reason is that his some light had come on his cockpit that indicated his landing gear wasn't down and locked the way it should be. So he was flying around, and they were trying to figure it out. And meantime, he ran out of gas and crashed it in a Portland neighborhood. Luckily, managed to hit a vacant lot, and not too many people got killed.
How long ago was this?
It
This
was
was years ago.
like
Okay.
like 7 or 8, I would say.
At least probably more
Yeah.
than that.
Okay,
Yeah, a long
all right.
time
It's like,
ago.
whoa, this does not ring a bell.
Yeah.
That's
It's an old one.
okay.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Got it.
But speaking of fuel, there's a lot of theories out there, of course, that this is some sort of conspiracy to hijack the plane and take the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as the fuel that was on the plane, you don't really know how much got put into it, because if somebody in the ground crew was in on the whole thing, then he could have actually put quite a bit more fuel in there. So
How do you know how much is like capacity? Like if it had been full up, how much fly time would it have had?
in terms of, I'm not sure about it time, because that depends on your speed.
Sure.
But the max range of the ER is 7,700 nautical miles, which is like 14,000 some kilometers, something like that.
Which is like,
What?
like just like
That'll
at average speed.
That'll get you a long ways. That'll probably from where they were at. That I imagine that would get you to Europe. It would certainly get you if you wanted to go to Kazakhstan or Pakistan. It would get you there easy.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look to. It seems to me that based on the fuel that they had, if that's accurate, they didn't quite have enough to get them to Kazakhstan or wherever. There's some people are claiming they might be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you look at those arrows and the fact that they were getting pinged from that position at 8:11 in the morning, well, they were almost there. So maybe they did.
Yeah. Maybe they made it.
Maybe they made it. I don't know. So now that we've got all the sort of basics down, it's
Housekeeping.
time to launch into the crazy theories, and they're not all crazy.
No.
Some of them are
Some-
really rational.
Some of them are pretty good, and some
Yeah.
of them are a little out there. But I've actually not included some of the most looniest ones. But
I've got them. I'll tell them.
You got
Me too. I got some too.
All right, cool.
Don't worry.
All right, so I divided the theories into two categories. One is how, the other is why. So
Okay.
Okay,
We want
perfect.
to know, how did this happen and why did it happen?
Okay.
Okay, so under how, so how did this thing disappear without a trace? So again, we've all seen the maps that indicate these arcs going northwest and also going southwest over the ocean. But since it was already headed northwest, I would surmise that it probably continued to go northwest. And so, but if it continued to go northwest, it was going over all kinds of countries.
A lot of airspace.
A lot of countries' airspace, like
Yeah.
including China and places like that are kind of touchy about their airspace. So how did it evade all these military radars of all these countries that it flew over? Well, okay, so theory number one, it didn't evade them. It crossed Chinese airspace and they shot them down.
Well,
and
yeah.
Yeah, and now they're keeping quiet about it because it's kind of an embarrassing faux pas.
I was talking to somebody before this about this, theory. And they said, yeah, but wouldn't somebody report that, like, from China? And I thought, I feel like China's the perfect place to shoot somebody down, though, right? There's a lot of open space. I just listened to something about how China's actually trying to relocate most of their farmers into urban areas.
Yeah, they are.
So there's, like, a lot of kind of rural areas that are just abandoned.
With no people.
With
Yeah.
no people.
Yeah, and China's like most countries around the world, too. Most of the population is actually close to the coast, and this would be as far away from the Chinese coast as you can imagine. It's
Yeah.
desert out there.
Yeah. So it'd be
So-
kind of a good place to shoot them down.
So anyway, they...
And then China, of course, is covering this up because they were like,
Yeah.
oh, oops.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, oops. And so they, so first thing that happens, the pilot comes back, so they shoot him because he might talk. So, and then they send a brigade of soldiers up there to clean up the mess and sanitize the site. And then, of course, they shoot them and put them in a mass grave. And then, of course, the other brigade of soldiers that had to dig the mass grave to bury them, they all have to be shot too. But eventually,
Jeez.
eventually you get far enough down the line.
Seriously.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. I don't totally give that a lot of credence myself.
It does seem like somebody would have come forward and said something by now.
Yeah,
It
that's
seems
a
that way.
pretty big stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And also, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the Chinese are kind of like the Russians in that they don't really care about world opinion.
Not
Yeah.
very often.
Not a
Yeah.
hell of a lot.
It would have been very
Yeah.
easy for them to say they weren't responding to us and we thought it was a danger, so we shot them down.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, it's unknown aircraft, and we thought it could have been a nuclear bomber
I mean,
or God knows what. So,
definitely
yeah.
not like a good defense, but a reasonable defense.
Well, I got to tell you one thing. If an unidentified Boeing 777 shows up outside, like, say, Tel Aviv or Manhattan anytime in the next week or two, it's going to get shot down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It better get
Yeah.
shot down.
Gone.
Yeah. All right. So another theory is that it evaded radar because it flew in the shadow of another airliner.
Oh.
This is really interesting.
I really
It is.
like this, yeah.
It's a very credible theory. So a blogger who's into aviation, his name is Keith Ledgerwood, he matched up MH370's course to another flight, another 777, by the way, which is Singapore Air Flight 68, which is en route from Singapore to Barcelona. And it takes a route that kind of goes, crosses where our Flight 370 was, and continues on westward, kind of northwestward across India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. And it was about at the same time. So he compared their flight paths and the timing and everything like that, and they were very close to each other. And our Flight 370 could have swung in behind and just sort of shadowed it across all these countries, which would have required them to shadow them pretty closely. They would have had to be within about 1,000 meters.
What about below?
How do you mean right underneath?
Yeah, like not direct, but like within 100 meters, but below.
Yeah, 1,000 meters.
Or 1,000, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, you wouldn't want to be right smack behind him. You want to either be above or
Yeah, they're not
below
going to
him.
draft them.
No,
Right.
yeah, you want to.
But like if it was like kind of below it,
that gives you a little
could
bit
it
of
have been? What does it give it more wiggle room? Is it like a?
Yeah, it gives you a little more. I mean, obviously, the guy at Singapore Flight 68 is not going to slam on his brakes. He wouldn't have any reason to. But
Right.
you hit a little turbulence, something like that. I mean, things can cause you to slow down and speed up and things like that. So obviously, you want to give yourself as much wiggle room as you can, but still stay close. But
And what I was wondering about that is, and I don't know this, so I'm going to ask, and I'm going to guess you have the answer, is do planes, when they're in the air, to track other planes that are around, do they run any kind of active radar of their own, or they just follow their plan and presume nobody's going to be in the way?
They leave it
Yeah.
up to air traffic control.
Yeah,
to
they
say-
they don't run active radar now.
Okay,
I mean,
I
if
was
you're-
just thinking, it was like, well, why wouldn't he see that other plane if it accidentally got a little ahead of him?
Right, 'cause
wasn't
they-
always falling behind, but was a little in front. But if it's at night,
It's at
and whoever's
night.
flying it, all their lights are off. and
Lights
they
are
have
off.
No idea.
Yeah, lights are off, transponders off, all
And
that
they're
stuff.
trusting, right? Air traffic control will be like, dude, there's a plane real close to
I
you.
know. But
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
right.
Did you ever see that movie Pushing Tin?
no, I never saw that.
It's Billy Bob Thornton and oh god.
So you know right off the bat it's a great
Is it
movie.
Broderick that's in that?
I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's they're air traffic controllers and all the crazy stuff that goes on. That's what I imagine that would be really difficult to be in that same situation while you're in your own plane.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the civilian flight control, it probably would have worked just fine, especially since their transponder was off, because apparently the resolution on civilian radars is not as precise as military's. Military radars, they have a higher resolution, which is why you'd have to stay really, really close to keep them from figuring out as two separate objects.
Sure.
Although it's possible too, they might see two separate objects and just conclude it was a
glitch.
an echo, just
Yeah.
an echo or a glitch or something like that. So, and then of course it could have peeled off anywhere, like say Pakistan. Gone out, and Pakistan has lots and lots of big airstrips.
I had heard a theory or somebody claiming on the internet, and of course it was the internet, right, that Boeing was saying no, he landed in Pakistan. But I have problems with that theory for other reasons. So
Wait, they're claiming that Boeing is saying specifically they know where it's landed, but
that like their technology tracking, right? Because there's, I guess it,
they're low jack.
yeah, or whatever,
Exactly. Yeah.
was said that it had landed in like Taliban-controlled Pakistan. But I just feel like the Taliban are not the kind of group who are like, yeah, let's play this one close to the chest.
Yeah.
No.
Let's just like keep it on the DL. Like, let's not
No.
tell anybody that we
It-
have this plane
it depends
until we
on
have
what-
this plane.
It
Like,
depends on what they're going to do with it, though.
But
You know,
I just
obviously,
feel like
if you're
there's-
gonna if you're going to fly over to Tel Aviv with a bunch of dirty bombs or nukes or something like that, then you obviously don't want to advertise that you have it.
But I mean, obviously, you are. I mean, like already, this plane is like high profile, so it's not
Yeah.
like you're gonna.
Well, you want
know.
to definitely hide that thing and be discreet in how you bring it out.
Yeah,
But it was
so-
funny.
Paint it.
I was reading because they actually interviewed some Taliban guys, and one of their spokesmen denied that they had it, and they said they knew nothing about it, and they interviewed some other jihadi type guy. I don't know if he was. Get a hold of something like that.
I wish we thought of that.
I know.
Yeah.
Man, we missed out.
I know.
Yeah.
I would really love that. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a little sidetracked.
Yeah. So anyway, I find that theory to be kind of credible. That might have allowed them to evade radar.
Yeah.
So next theory, how did they evade radar? Well, maybe they didn't go northwest. Maybe they actually did go southwest and head off sort of towards Diego Garcia, that direction, South Indian Ocean. And then eventually either had a remote island somewhere out there that had a long enough airstrip for them to land on. Or according to one nut job, he says that they crashed, or he says that they probably crashed into the airbase at Diego Garcia, destroying lots and lots of valuable aircraft in the process. And according to this guy's conspiracy theory, the government's covering it up because that's just what they do. They're embarrassed, apparently, or something.
And there has been talk that it went to is it Andaman Islands? They're in the Bay of Bengal.
Yeah.
And they've got there's one airport there that's big enough, evidently, that
Yeah.
you could land a 777.
Yeah.
And so if it was heading southwestish,
Yeah, it
if I
could've-
understand where it was at in relation, it could have gone there.
Yeah, though
Except that nobody saw it.
Yeah, exactly. They're they're populated, and somebody would have noticed something huge like that coming into their airport.
Well, and I don't think that it's a airport that is what we consider an airport, as in not a good tarmac. It's kind of dirt. So you would imagine the landing gear in a plane that heavy coming in that fast would sink and snap and crash, and then we'd
Maybe.
all see it.
Yeah, maybe.
But didn't the pilot of this flight have like 18 or like 20 years of